The Shadow Spectrum, Episode 5, The Strategist's Mask, Deception, Delay in Design, The Art of Influence Without Integrity. Welcome back to the Shadow Spectrum. I'm grateful you've chosen to step into this reflective space with me, a place not for performance or pretense, but for honest examination. In our last episode, The Mirror Maze, Identity, Illusion and Reflection Hunger, we explored how the self is sculpted in the gaze of others, how visibility becomes both a need and a narcotic. We traced three mirrors of adaptation: the narcissist, who inflates to ensure admiration; the histrionic, who dramatizes to secure attention; and the codependent, who erases themselves for approval. Each identity emerged from reflection hunger, the deep longing to be seen, understood, and held without distortion. But once we learn that reflection governs connection, another impulse awakens, the desire not just to be seen, but to shape how we're seen. What begins as survival through performance evolves into influence through precision. The child who once feared invisibility becomes the adult who manipulates visibility, no longer reacting to attention, but orchestrating it. This is where we meet the strategist's mask, the face worn when sincerity feels inefficient, when authenticity seems like a luxury, when control masquerades as safety. The strategist doesn't chase the spotlight, they design it. They don't crave applause, they anticipate it. They study power not as privilege, but as protection. Rooted in the psychological construct of Machiavellianism, this mask thrives on cognitive empathy, the ability to read emotions without feeling them, to study people as patterns, not partners. Where the narcissist seeks validation, the strategist seeks leverage. Where the performer wants to be admired, the planner wants to be obeyed. But this is not a villain's story. Like all shadows, it began as intelligence. Many strategists are forged in chaos, households where truth was punished, vulnerability exploited, and honesty used as evidence. They learned early that information was currency, that timing was defense, and that silence could shield. The strategist's mask, in its infancy, is the armor of the observant child, one who studies every move to stay safe, one who learns to control the game, because they could never control the players. Yet intelligence without integrity eventually turns inward. Strategy becomes suspicion. Persuasion becomes manipulation. The mask no longer protects, it imprisons. And so this episode asks, when have your ends rewritten your ethics? When did you tell yourself the lie that served the truth? When did you use insight as leverage instead of empathy? When did you choose outcome over honesty, and did it cost you peace? We all wear this mask at times. In negotiation, diplomacy, leadership, and even love, there's a part of us that calculates. But what separates influence from deceit isn't intellect, it's intention. Integrity isn't the absence of strategy, it's the alignment of motive and method. Today, we'll unmask the architect of advantage, exploring the psychology of Machiavellianism, how it forms and what it fears. We'll trace its interplay with psychopathy, the fearless executor, and the puppeteer, the cautious planner. But mercy without mutuality becomes mastery, and the mask, once protective, begins to suffocate. In the next part, we'll meet the strategist's counterparts, the puppeteer and the psychopath, to understand how intellect, fearlessness, and detachment intertwine in the architecture of control. The puppeteer and the psychopath. Strategy meets fearlessness. Every strategist eventually faces a fork in the labyrinth, to think more or to feel less. One path sharpens foresight, the other severs conscience. Walk far enough and the two meet, cold logic fused with fearless action. Here stand the puppeteer and the psychopath, twin expressions of mastery without mercy. The puppeteer, strings of safety. The puppeteer is the planner within the strategist's mask, the mind that stays 10 moves ahead because surprise once meant danger. They believe chaos is preventable if every variable is mapped, every person positioned, every outcome rehearsed. Control is compassion, they tell themselves. Guidance is love in its most efficient form. Their superpower is anticipation. Before you finish a sentence, they've charted your reactions, counteroffers, and likely regrets. Conversation becomes choreography, each pause a cue, each phrase a tug on an invisible thread. Yet beneath precision hums anxiety. What looks like dominance is often dread in disguise, dread of betrayal, rejection, or randomness. To the puppeteer, spontaneity equals risk, and risk equals pain. Psychological roots. Many puppeteers grew up in volatile systems, parental mood swings, shifting loyalties, and unspoken rules. They survived by forecasting emotional weather. Hypervigilance became intellect. Empathy became instrumentation. When honesty erupted into punishment, subtlety felt safer than sincerity. Thus, manipulation emerged not as malice but emotional cartography, mapping others to avoid collision. Mirror linguistic pattern puppeteer language brims with soft coercion. Let's do it my way, it'll save you trouble. Trust me, I know what's best. You'll thank me later. Each phrase packages dominance as benevolence, turning autonomy into gratitude. The nervous system behind it oscillates between sympathetic alertness, tight jaw, fast speech, and dorsal withdrawal, masked detachment. Over time, these strings tighten. What began as coordination becomes control. What began as care becomes choreography. Loved ones sense the script, even when motives are kind. Relationship shifts from duet to marionette, connection through compliance. The cost is intimacy. Real closeness demands uncertainty, and uncertainty is the one variable the puppeteer forbids. The psychopath. Courage without cord where the puppeteer plans, the psychopath acts. They are fearlessness incarnate, nervous systems running on low threat detection, amygdala tuned to calm under crisis. Pain registers, but panic seldom follows. To them, danger feels like data confrontation, a puzzle. This trait set, low anxiety, high dominance, shallow effect can breed both heroism and harm. In emergencies, psychopathic composure saves lives. In relationships, it can erode empathy, converting people into pieces on a board whose loss carries no ache. Developmental pathways research divides psychopathy into primary, inherent affective deficit, and secondary, trauma-born numbness. Primary psychopaths simply don't feel fear or guilt strongly. Secondary ones learn not to, after repeated exposure to chaos where feeling deeply meant drowning. In both, vulnerability is foreign, remorse an optional afterthought. Moral function without visceral anxiety, the internal stop sign is faint. Ethics become external, rules to navigate, not embody. They read morality like traffic lights. Red means risk, not wrong. Yet not all psychopathic traits are pathological. When integrated with empathy, fearlessness becomes fortitude, the calm surgeon, the crisis negotiator, the activist facing arrest. Shadow turns luminous when harnessed by conscience. The tango of calculation and courage together, the puppeteer and psychopath, form the dual engine of Machiavellian mastery. One conceives the scheme, the other executes without flinch. Strategy meets certainty, intellect meets impulse. In corporate arenas, they appear as visionary CEOs, brilliant, bold, detached. In politics, as spin-savvy operators calculating optics, unmoved by outrage. In households, as partners who orchestrate every decision, yet feel little when blame lands. Interpersonal dynamics puppeteer alone. Paralysis by analysis, endless plotting, limited risk. Psychopath alone. Impulsive gambits, bold moves, poor foresight, combined. Formidable influence, cool logic plus fearless delivery. But integration without empathy births exploitation. Plans become predation, confidence, coercion. Neurobehavioral interplay functional MRI studies show. Puppeteers, high Machiavellians, exhibit elevated activity in prefrontal regions, planning, inhibition. Psychopathic profiles show dampened amygdala reactivity, fear, guilt. When merged, cognition outpaces compassion, the brain calculating consequence absent emotional calibration. Cold cognition. The sanitized sin, both archetypes rely on cold cognition, reasoning stripped of effect. To think clearly, they mute feeling. To act efficiently, they silence doubt. This detachment feels like clarity, but is often dissociation wearing a lab coat. Cold cognition justifies cruelty through arithmetic. If 3 suffer, so 30 survive, the math is moral. Such calculus fuels both policy and personal betrayal, where outcomes eclipse oaths. Moral disengagement, bandura, key mechanisms surface here, euphemistic labeling. It's just business, diffusion of responsibility. Everyone agreed. Advantageous comparison. At least I'm not as bad as them. Each phrase cools conscience, converting emotion to equation. Fearlessness versus compassion. A balancing act fear regulates empathy. Empathy refines fear. Remove one, and an imbalance ensues. Excess fear leads to paralysis and people-pleasing. Absence of fear leads to recklessness and harm. Integration invites brave empathy, the courage to act rightly and feel fully. This synthesis defines the ethical strategist, guided by foresight grounded in feeling. Somatic bridge to temper cold cognition. Re-engage interoception. Notice heartbeat before decision, breath before reply. Warm data humanizes hard logic. Practice. When plotting a strategy, place a hand on your heart. Ask, would I want this done to me? Let pulse, not profit, answer. Case scenarios corporate chessboard. A manager with puppeteer precision reshuffles staff for efficiency. Behind metrics, hides retaliation language. Streamlining workflows, maximizing synergy, decode. I'm removing dissent while appearing decisive. Alternative, transparent consultation, strategy with inclusion. Intimate diplomacy, a partner times affection and withdrawal to steer compliance. They call it motivating growth. Impact, partner self-doubts, molds behavior, repair, swap manipulation for mutual planning, co-authored goals, shared accountability. Political theatre A leader releases selective truths for national stability. Short-term calm, long-term mistrust. Lesson, secrecy may save today but corrodes tomorrow's consent. Mirror linguistic decode, observe these syntactic tells, appeal to obligation. After all I've done for you. Emotional minimizing, don't overreact. Strategic flattery, you're too smart to fall for that. Each phrase nudges behavior while masking motive. Reframe practice. Take one manipulative line you've used or received. Rewrite in NSL, nervous system language, tone of safety, clarity, consent, e.g. You owe me reframed as I feel unacknowledged. Can we talk about fairness? Notice bodily shift. Expansion replaces contraction. Shadow to skill. Transmutation, not all strings must strangle. Some can support structure. Strategic thinking, when cleansed of deceit, becomes stewardship. Fearlessness, when coupled with empathy, becomes leadership. To transmute: 1. Name the motive. I'm seeking control because I feel unsafe. 2. State intention aloud. I want influence and integrity. 3. Add transparency. Reveal process. Invite feedback. 4. Accept uncertainty. Plans may flex. Truth must stay. This is mindful persuasion. Guidance without guile. Reflection prompt. Awareness. When do I pull strings instead of sharing truth? Whose autonomy have I mistaken for chaos? Where do I act without fear, but also without feeling? Practice. This week, catch one manipulative impulse mid-motion. Pause, breathe, reframe. What outcome serves both truth and trust? Then speak the revised line aloud. Track body feedback if breath flows, integrity's intact. The puppeteer seeks certainty, the psychopath conquest. Together, they promise control, yet deliver isolation. Strategy minus sincerity builds empires that echo. Integration demands triangulation. The puppeteer lends foresight. The psychopath lends courage. The heart lends a compass. Only when all three converse can power become presence. So before every calculated move, whisper, "May my design include their dignity." In that sentence, manipulation dissolves into mastery. The ethics of expedience, ends, means, and moral mutation. Every mask must eventually face a mirror. For the strategist, that mirror is morality. It's one thing to shape outcomes, another to justify them. To say "I did what I had to do" is to tell yourself that survival outranks sincerity, that necessity rewrites virtue. This is the creed of expedience, a moral flexibility that bends to circumstance, sanctified by success. The strategist mask survives through reason, not rage. It does not shout, it explains. Every lie is renamed tact, every omission mercy, every manipulation management. And slowly, the nervous system learns to pair calm with compromise. The body relaxes not in truth, but in triumph. Yet each ethical shortcut carries a subtle toll, the erosion of coherence. When language splits intention from action, the psyche fractures. Integrity, from the Latin integer, means whole. To act against our own stated values, even for logic's sake, is to become divided, fluent in strategy, illiterate in self-trust. Expedience. The soft logic of survival. In evolutionary psychology, expedience is intelligence applied under pressure. When faced with a threat, the organism prioritizes outcome over purity. The fox chews off its leg to escape the trap. The human lies to escape humiliation. Both survive, but both limp afterwards. The strategist's nervous system often learned early that truth is unsafe. A parent punished confession more than deception. An institution rewarded compliance over candor. The body memorized this equation. Honesty equals harm. So expedience became evolution, not moral decay, but adaptation. Yet adaptations calcify when never re-evaluated. What was once survival becomes identity. Soon the strategist cannot distinguish diplomacy from deceit, boundary from betrayal, prudence from pretext. Expedience whispers, do what works. Integrity asks, at what cost? Philosophical fault lines ethics offers two primary compasses: deontology and consequentialism. Deontology, Kant, anchors morality in principle. An act is right if it honors duty, regardless of result. Consequentialism, Mill, weighs good by outcome. An act is moral if it maximizes benefit, even through harm. Machiavellianism lives in the grey between, a pragmatic consequentialism stripped of empathy. It asks not, is it right, but will it work? The trouble is that working is a moving target. A tactic that preserves peace today may plant distrust tomorrow. A lie that saves one relationship may poison all future ones. The nervous system cannot tell time. It associates relief with safety, even if the relief is deceit. Thus begins moral mutation, when short-term strategy rewires long-term identity. Each compromise becomes precedent, each justified act a lesson. Soon, the strategist no longer chooses expedience, they are expedients. The body's barometer of truth is not only cognitive, it is somatic. Polyvagal theory suggests the ventral vagal state, associated with safety, connection, and authenticity, is activated when behavior aligns with inner values. Conversely, deception, even self-deception, engages sympathetic arousal, fight, flight, or dorsal collapse, shutdown. Hence the classic tells, tight jaw, shallow breath, eyes averting, the fight to appear calm. Flat tone, dissociation, the freeze of moral fatigue. The strategist often mistakes this tension for excitement, the thrill of the game. But the body knows, it registers incoherence as a threat. You can't fool fascia, muscles store meaning. Exercise, the somatic compass, recall a time you acted against your integrity for a good reason. Replay it slowly. Notice your body's data. Where did tension collect? Now imagine choosing honesty instead. Which sensation feels more sustainable? Expedience may soothe ego, but truth steadies spine. Everyday ethics, micro-compromises, grand betrayals are rare, tiny trades are daily. We dilute truth drop by drop, white lies. I'm fine. It's no trouble. I'll think about it. Strategic omissions, leaving details unspoken to guide perception. Performative politeness, saying yes to avoid awkwardness, smiling past resentment. Each seems trivial, yet together they script an ethical dialect of dissonance. When practiced long enough, sincerity feels rude, appeasement polite. The nervous system habituates to tension, mistaking contraction for composure. Reversal begins with micro-truths, saying I'm tired instead of I'm fine. Admitting I disagree with the moral middle ground. Most of us live not at extremes but in negotiation between ideal and impulse, heart and horizon. This middle is fertile yet fraught. To act purely by principle is brittle. To act solely by outcome is hollow. Wisdom lies in contextual conscience, adjusting method without abandoning motive. Ask before each decision. 1. Value. Which principle matters here? 2. Impact. Who benefits, who bears cost? 3. Feeling. What does my body signal, ease or unease? 4. Legacy. Would I repeat this choice in front of those I guide? Moral maturity isn't a flawless choice. It's iterative alignment, recalibrating when deviation occurs. NSL reframe, from troll to coherence in nervous system language. Regulation precedes reason. A dysregulated body seeks certainty, often through control. When tension rises, expedience seduces. Fix it now, feel safe later. NSL translation offers alternative syntax. I must control this translates to I feel unsafe with uncertainty. They need direction translates to I'm anxious about outcomes. Naming state dissolves strategy's grip. Practice. Before decisive action, pause to label bodily data, tightness, heat, breath. Ask, is this urgency or integrity? Only act when physiology softens. Softness is a signal of sincerity. Repairing the ethical muscle. Like any muscle, conscience strengthens through repetition under manageable weight. Daily reps. Admit minor mistakes aloud. State preferences without pretext. Decline requests without apology. Offer truth in low-stakes settings to train tolerance. Each act rebuilds moral proprioception, the felt sense of alignment. Over time, truth becomes the default posture, not a deliberate pose. Reflection prompts self-inquiry. Where do I equate kindness with concealment? Which necessary deceptions still echo in my chest? What part of me believes transparency is dangerous? When have I mistaken tension relief for moral rightness? Practice. This week, choose one conversation where you typically tailor truth. Speak the unedited version, tone gentle and words plain. Afterward, note sensations. Did honesty tighten or ease your body? Record both outcome and afterglow. Integrity often feels quiet, not grand. Integration insight. The strategist's evolution depends not on losing intellect, but recoupling it with empathy. When head and heart resynchronize, foresight serves fairness. Strategy guided by sensation becomes stewardship. Ethics is not a leash, it's a compass. Without it, cleverness drifts into cunning. With it, cunning matures into craft, the ability to shape futures without severing trust. Every shortcut shortens something sacred. Sometimes it's trust, sometimes it's time to grow. To act with integrity is to walk the longer path, one paved not with ease but with coherence. Because in the quiet audit of the soul, outcomes fade, only alignment echoes. The language of leverage, words that weave the web. Every conversation is a current, and every current can be steered. Some move by honesty, some by habit, and others by fear. Leverage begins where listening ends, that subtle pivot from sharing to shaping, from presence to performance. We often imagine manipulation as overt, the schemer, the charmer, the tyrant. Yet more choreography loosened. Conversation became collaboration. Leverage turned into language again. The anatomy of leverage hides in plain speech, not in what we say, but why we say it. Common tactics include flattery, sugar-coated hooks, no one understands me like you. Omission, steering narratives by subtraction. Martyrdom, suffering as spotlight. Don't worry about me, I'll manage. Selective vulnerability, curated confession to earn reciprocity. Escalation, volume as veto, urgency as armor. Each emerged from adaptive genius, strategies that once prevented rejection or conflict. Yet repetition without reflection rebrands protection as personality. Strategic empathy reads emotion to redirect outcomes. Authentic empathy meets emotion to co-regulate experience. The former analyses, the latter attunes. One calculates response, the other cultivates resonance. In control theory terms, leverage seeks output regulation, altering others to stabilize the self. True communication seeks feedback integration, mutual adjustment through trust. Game theory mirrors this. Zero-sum games, win or lose competition, thrive on leverage. Iterated cooperative games, win or win, thrive on transparency. Language determines which game you're playing. The need beneath the needle behind every manipulative move lies a legitimate need. Control masks vulnerability. Seduction masks shame. Silence masks fear. Attachment theory maps the motives. Anxious types leverage closeness. Protest behaviors, guilt, and oversharing. Avoidant types leverage distance, withdrawal, ambiguity, and intellectualizing. Disorganized types oscillate, push-pull, and test consistency. Leverage is the psyche's plea. Meet the need I can't admit. For the anxious, that need is reassurance. For the avoidant, autonomy. For the disorganized, predictability. Healing begins when we translate tactics back into truths. I'm not trying to guilt you. I'm scared you'll forget me. I'm not avoiding. I need space to stay kind. These disclosures convert manipulation into mindfulness. NSL reframe. From strategy to signal nervous system language, NSL invites honesty through physiology. Before words, check the body. Tight throat, you're censoring. Fast speech, you're persuading. Held breath, you're hiding. Reframe sequence. 1. Pause, notice sensation. 2. Name, I feel tense, I might be trying to control. 3. Translate, express, underline, need. Examples. If you loved me, you'd know reframe to, I need to feel considered without prompting. Forget it, I'll do it myself reframed as, I'm afraid asking makes me burdensome. Silence reframed as, I'm overwhelmed, can we slow down? Tone transmits safety faster than syntax. Soften cadence, lower volume, lengthen exhale, physiology precedes philosophy. The mirror moment, recognizing reflex catching leverage in real time, is delicate work. It often surfaces mid-sentence, the sudden urge to edit truth or embellish pain. Practice. Pause when you feel urgency to convince. Breathe into the impulse. Ask, am I seeking control or connection? If the body tightens, it's control. If it softens, it's connection. Awareness disarms defense. The goal isn't to banish strategy, it's to choose it consciously. Mapping the moral compass. To move from cleverness to clarity, I sketched a moral compass map, not commandments, but coordinates. Axis value guiding question. Does this align with who I say I am? Regulation cue, a steady heartbeat axis boundary guiding question. What's mine to hold? Regulation cue, shoulders drop when respected. Axis, motive guiding question. Am I serving connection or control? Regulation cue, warmth in chest axis, impact guiding question. Who benefits? Who bears cost? Regulation cue, breath flows if fair. The map lives in sensation, not slogans. Each axis triangulates integrity in real time. Practice. Before a decisive speech, run a 4-point check-in. If any coordinate tightens, postpone persuasion. Seek regulation first. Wise manipulation to transmutation and mindful persuasion influence is inevitable. Deceit is optional. Wise manipulation, better named mindful persuasion, means using insight with others, not on them. Principles. 1. Transparency of intention state motive upfront. I'd like to propose an idea. Tell me how it lands. 2. Consenting conversation. Check readiness. Is now a good time to discuss this? 3. Reciprocity of benefit. Ensure mutual gain or shared understanding. 4. Somatic honesty. Notice if your body strains. Tension betrays tactic. When purpose is disclosed, influence becomes invitation. Manipulation hides fear. Persuasion reveals faith in self, in other, in dialogue. Power redefined. Power once meant predictability, the comfort of control. Integration redefines it as presence, the courage to relate without rehearsal. Observable shifts. Shifts from outcome obsession lead to process participation. Shifts from dominance allow for direction. Shifts from certainty to curiosity. Shifts from charisma to embodied coherence. Power is no longer the ability to move others, but the capacity to remain regulated while truth moves through you. Systems check. Shadow, light, shadow strategy, manipulation. Its integrated expression as mindful persuasion. Shadow strategy, secrecy. Its integrated expression as strategic transparency. Shadow strategy, calculation. Its integrated expression as compassionate planning. Shadow strategy, expedience. Its integrated expression as ethical efficiency. Shadow strategy, flattery. Its integrated expression authentic appreciation. Shadow strategy, martyrdom. Its integrated expression as responsible generosity. Integration doesn't exile the strategist, it rehabilitates them. The same mind that once schemed now stewards. The burnout lesson. Burnout was not failure, it was feedback. The collapse signaled completion of an outdated contract. Safety equals mastery. Rest rewrote it. Safety as embodiment. Practical integrations born from that season. Scheduled ignorance. Periods with no research, only reception. Embodied editing. Revising text aloud. If breath catches, sentence softens. Collaborative mapping. Co-creating frameworks to dilute control. Each choice retrains the nervous system to equate not knowing with aliveness. The boundary within intellectual overreach often pairs with relational overreach. Saying yes where the body says no replicates cognitive excess. Boundary practice. 1. Pre-commitment scan. Sense chest before agreeing. 2. Declarative honesty. I'd like to, but it would crowd my clarity. 3. Aftercare. Note if guilt surfaces. Soothe, don't surrender. A boundary is a bridge built from clarity, not a wall built from anger. Building the moral compass map. Applied exercise 1. List core values: truth, compassion, autonomy, learning. 2. Define non-negotiables, e.g., no hidden agendas. 3. Identify temptations where strategy eclipses sincerity. 4. Draft counter moves, grounding, disclosure, pause. 5. Review quarterly. Integrity is iterative. Embed in journal. Annotate bodily cues beside each. The map matures with every misstep. Practice. Crafting a persuasion rooted in mutual benefit template. 1. Context, name, shared goal. Disclosure. State your wish. 3. Inquiry. Invite theirs. 4. Alignment. Co-design next step. Example. We both want this project to feel sustainable. I'm leaning toward option A because it preserves clarity. How do you see it? No hooks, no haste, just co-authored momentum. Reflection prompt. What does ethical influence feel like? Close your eyes. Recall a moment you spoke truth gently yet firmly. Scan body, throat open, breath smooth, spine tall. That is ethical influence, steadiness without strain. Contrast with persuasive tension, jaw tight, tone rising. The body tells moral temperature faster than thought. Integration summary: the honest strategist. Thinks ahead without leaving the heart behind. Uses structure to serve, not subdue. Equates clarity with kindness, boundary with belonging. Strategy becomes spirituality in motion. Intelligence, offering itself through integrate spine, the mirror of motive. Every tactic holds a truth it's trying to tell. The mirror is not here to punish, but to translate. Take a slow breath and glance inward. When do I design instead of disclose? Which outcomes feel worth my honesty? What story am I protecting when I over-explain? This audit is not confession to a judge, but a conversation with a guardian, the part of you that remembers why you began to plan at all. To keep life kinder than the chaos you once knew. Compassionate self-review. Look at recent choices through 3 lenses. 1. Intention. Was I seeking safety, success, or sincerity? 2. Impact. Did my action expand or contract trust? 3. Integration. Can I stand beside that decision without armor? If discomfort arises, treat it as data, not debt. Awareness completes what guilt only circles. Repair. Don't ruminate when a strategy crosses into manipulation. Acknowledge aloud. I shaped that moment more than I shared it. Then repair, clarify motive, invite response, and realign. Honesty offered post hoc still heals. Integrity is iterative. The mask you reach for notice, which persona appears when truth feels too slow. The charmer buys time with warmth. The scholar floods space with facts. The martyr barters pain for permission. Thank the mask, it once saved you. Then let breath, not brilliance, lead the next sentence. Closing reflections: integration isn't the end of strategy. It's the return of soul from the system. Every plan still needs a pulse, every boundary a heartbeat. Speak with clarity, act with care, rest with conscience clear. Because the most persuasive sentence is a regulated nervous system, and the most strategic move is truth on time. So, as we come to the end of the episode, thank you for walking this mirror maze with me. May these words help you sense the moment influence turns to integrity, when your voice steadies, your body softens, and your motive smiles back at you. Until next time, stay curious, stay kind, and let yourself breathe. You've been listening to the Linguaverse Presence, the Shadow Spectrum. I'm James Miller.